Do you know what the best thing touching on 1 or 2 shows per decade has done for me? Throw me for a loop. Disney hasn't been very kind to me this year. Brady and Mr. Whiskers wasn't horrible, and Quack Pack. But I've been waiting for a home run from them for a little longer than I usually would. Thankfully, I'm starting to hit up 2010s cartoons on a more regular basis. It's an old enough time to be partly historical now, and it's said that this was a mostly good era for Disney television animation. And if this isn't the peak, I'm elated. Wander Over Yonder is one of the most beloved cartoons of the past 10 years, but not one of the most popular. For some, it's severely underrated, but others get the feeling it could have been even better if it got some attention and went on longer. I entered the cartoon community just a little too late to get into this show, and it looked extremely weird and creative to me, but I was hurting a bit too much from Phineas and Ferb's cancellation to watch much Disney at the time. But I'm over that now, and ready to see what sort of mayhem it helped usher in. Wander was conceived at a glorious time in history, when Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends was ending. All jabs aside, the show had been pretty popular for good reason, and it seemed everyone involved was moving on to bright pastures, including creator Craig McCracken. He had a sketch of a scraggly yokel creature ready to bloom into a big adventure, but you could arguably trace it back to this beard imaginary friend on Foster's too, same color scheme at least. But before it could be its own series, Craig was appointed co-executive producer on Cartoon Network's new showcase series, The Cartoonstitute, before leaving the network altogether in 2009, burned by their neglect of it. He moved to Disney soon after, forming Wander Over Yonder into a sci-fi epic. But the real battle was to fit in line with Disney's sensibilities. It couldn't be too dark or violent, and many jokes and ideas were rejected, but hype was building. Craig was already selling Wander Over Yonder merchandise at conventions, getting his fans familiar with the fact that this would be his third show, and perhaps the most different yet. And that's saying something given how his Cartoon Network creations were a world apart. Wander Over Yonder premiered on Disney Channel on August 16th, 2013, and I saw it as like a companion show to the Paul Rudish Mickey Mouse series. Both were sort of animation throwbacks baked in modernized puppet-rigged mayhem, but I kept up with the Mickey Mouse series on and off due to brand familiarity. I hope this isn't a common story because from what I've seen, heard, and read, Wander was loved. If you were a fan of it, you were a really huge one, despite it not staying very popular with the general public. You can blame Disney for that, as they moved it to their less popular sister network, Disney XD, a couple months into its run. The trouble this always caused is that, while XD had a more specific demographic, it didn't have the subscriber base and pop culture foothold Disney Channel had spent decades building up. It's a miracle then that Wander Over Yonder stayed popular enough to get a second season with fairly strong promotion, which ended on June 27th, 2016. Since Craig has since moved back to Cartoon Network to produce Powerpuff and Foster's revivals, chances of a third season are very slim, but if there's anything to gain from this show, it's a positive frame of mind.
I am the greatest in all the galaxy!
Wow, congratulations, that's amazing! Have you ever done this?
Far out in space, there's a galaxy of innocent and colourful planets ready for a shake-up. Lord HATEY and his legion of eyes want to take over them and become a galaxy-wide dictatorship. But stopping them is Wander and his trusty steed Sylvia. They just want to spread joy and freedom, so often come into altercations with Lord HATEY's entirely different plans. But through one means or another, freedom prevails, and the wandering weirdo lives to explore the planets another day. It's not complicated, it's not pretentious, it's just a simple good versus evil narrative that's easy to get on board with. And that's just if this was a book. When you add animation to the mix, you get a wild good time. The story and visuals always work in unity to make this a galaxy worth exploring. It wouldn't be impossible to adapt this into a non-visual medium, but with those visuals, those chances for vibrant shots and memorable locations, it's a splendid fit for the cartoon medium. Also, this could be my gamer side speaking, but a hatchet helper and his steed travel across planetoids, helping cute alien creatures from a tyrannical villain? It almost sounds like they wanted to make a Super Mario Galaxy cartoon when you put it that way. And those are my favorites in the series, so this personally satisfies an appetite for a genuinely great Mario cartoon I've had since childhood. I'm already excited to share my love for this cartoon, and I haven't even gotten to the characters yet! Wander is this mix of wise and innocent, his life goal being to befriend everyone he runs into. His enthusiasm rubs off on you because he's got no edges, at most he's excitable. A completely well-meaning little guy, by his very existence making the universe a happier place. Usually the biggest tests his character faces are when the others aren't on board with his plans, not that it ever stops him. I love characters like this that were created to spread good vibes, because I just know them being on screen is comforting to someone. His ride and traveling companion Sylvia is a space dinosaur, but you best use the more accepted terms Bornak. She's a lot stronger and smarter than Wander, but less eager to jump to the most extreme ideas. You can see her as the sane one in the duo, the one who's had more experience with bad people and difficulty understanding Wander's worldview. At the same time, she's his best friend. They both just want justice to be spread and everyone to have a good time. They're both thrilled to explore the cosmos, and Sylvia can definitely knock some sense into Wander once in a while. Favorite character right here, because for such a loopy show, it was necessary to have someone more grounded and rational in the spotlight. The main antagonist is Lord Hater, a power-hungry dictator with the mind of a teenage punk. He hates sunshine and rainbows and all that friendly junk, and just wants everyone to worship him for how awesome he thinks he is. For as strong as his army of watchdogs is, and as massive as his ship is, it was for the best he quickly became a joke villain, someone Wander can easily defeat with kindness on a daily basis. It just makes his boastfulness more ironic that he sees himself as this villainous superstar, but really has no idea what he's doing. His second in command is Commander Peepers, who's madly in love with his job. Whenever there's a big authoritative force in an animated show, I end up liking their assistant more because there's more layers to their personality and more for them to prove, and Peepers nails that. Not that he's that much more fun to watch than Hater, but because even he has more passion for being an actual villain. It's weird how you kinda want to root for him to take charge sometimes, just so a fair fight can commence. I'll save a new villain from season 2 for later, so onto the side characters. The trouble with going through them is that they're mostly one-offs, so I would feel like I'm unfairly picking some over others if I were to go through like 5 of them and not the other 50. So I'll only go through select ones that had 2 or more noteworthy roles, most of them being villains. The most recurring side character is Emperor Awesome, a party animal who loves flexing his wealth, often depicted as Hater's main rival. What I find funny is that Awesome isn't actually that different from Hater in terms of function and goals. You're just putting a mirror to Hater whenever they interact. Captain Tim is an alien menace that completely wrecked a spaceship in this sort of alien send-up, who soon becomes Lord Hater's pet. They do a couple things with him to underline his owner's personality, but I wouldn't exactly call him a cute pet. Sir Brad Starlight is probably my least favorite character, but still kind of useful. He proves that not all fairy tale princes are nice, but I've seen this done better before. I do like the Black Cube though, a soul-sucking anomaly that's actually quite lonely and sympathetic. You can call him a villain, but you can't exactly say he's soulless. There's also Delza, a cat that Wander adopts at one point, who's actually a bounty hunter trying to sucker people into her plans. As a dog person, I approve of this villain. And yeah, most of these pseudo-secondaries are villains they wanted to bring back for more evil. But there are tons of friends and allies who only make a few comebacks towards the end of the show. Not that they're worse characters or anything, but it wouldn't be right if Wander kept going back to their planets after everything got fixed. That wouldn't be as exciting as what we got.
Just stay put! I'll come find you!
I guess I'll just stay put, and you can find me.
If you absolutely need a refresher of my opinion on Craig's previous show, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, well, I found the standard episodes to be a mixed bag that leaned more into bad over time. The TV movies were very impressive, the latter two specifically, Good Will Hunting and Destination Imagination, the former being about a kindly creature roaming the world and helping people along the way, the latter being a highly varied work of fantasy. With Wander Over Yonder, It's like they took the most unique aspects of Foster's best episodes and made them their own show, and I couldn't be happier with that decision. Looking at Wander Over Yonder as its own thing again, it's just awesome to see with the two leads in particular that the goal of the show is to spread hope and optimism. A lot of sci-fi is all about taking issues we've dealt with across history and throwing them into outer space, and Wander does that on a massive scale. Many of the places they visit are dealing with the kind of danger or sadness that can be relatable to us, and psychologically, just showing that your feelings can be dealt with anywhere else out there, and that there are people willing to work through those problems with you, which is uplifting. At its very core, this is a very pleasant show to experience. But what are some good vibes without a good story to go along with them? And something I see in Wander that I wish could apply to as many shows as possible is this. Any episode could be your favorite. There is so much on offer here. They didn't even last very long, but they used the time they had to let a whole slew of creative ideas bloom. Every episode feels a little different, like it has a different secondary goal, story, character, or animation-wise. But with a few exceptions, it's not about trying out gimmicks and format benders. The location offers something unique, the music offers something unique, the art direction offers something unique, the comedy offers something unique. It's a show you can never get tired of, because if you've ever got this perfect image of Wander Over Yonder in your head, get rid of it, because no episode is exactly like another. And I have to stress, that's a great thing for an animated show where you can do whatever you want. Craig was still fond of using Adobe Flash to animate, still getting help from Boulder Media to bring it all to life, and they worked miracles. We tend to think of puppet rig animation as typically safe and rigid, but Wander Over Yonder is stretchy, fluid, exaggerated, and as mesmerizing as a lava lamp that could tell stories. You could be able to notice that aesthetically. It takes plenty of influence from 60s media like Yellow Submarine and the works of Dr. Seuss. A good base of reference for something that's going to be so drenched in fantasy. And a round of applause for every director on this show, for making sure it's always pushing the art of television animation. It would be impossible to think of Disney making a show this beautiful in the 1980s. Not to say their older stuff looked bad, but it's clear that with TV animation, there's always new styles to claim and hone one's craft at. And because every episode caps off with an unused storyboard sequence, I will too. This is a very crafty way to give us more time with the show, and use scenes that could have been cut. From start to finish, they want your interest, and that speaks for itself. Despite the show only running for 2 seasons, both of them have their own strengths and identities, with season 1 being relatively more episodic and explorative. Wander and Sylvia's current goal isn't to thwart HATEY, it's to see new things and meet new people. That's a way to get us used to their grind and to this galaxy. Whether they're trying to escape a dangerous city or going on an epic quest, you're gonna get the bright side from Wander and the realist side from Sylvia, 2 relatable perspectives nearly all the time. They're separated once in a while, but they're figuratively inseparable, so you'll want to see them both do anything the crew can think of. Just because it's episodic doesn't mean you get hard resets or anything like that. It's eventually made clear that the characters are learning lessons from their travels, basic things about patience and dependence and stuff that build up over time and make them stronger, especially Commander Peepers, funnily enough. He's probably the character who changes the most drastically across the first season, which is clearly done to demonstrate his superior villainy skills over HATEY, whose big bad facade is peeled away rather quickly. Wander and Sylvia's development is more incremental compared to the villains. It encourages you to spend time with them, knowing they'll trust each other more, just as much as you can trust they'll keep being good characters. And that's all I can say about season 1. Sorry it's brief, but it speaks for itself. It's this strangely effective mix of breezy and crazy. Within episodes, you're sold that they can do almost anything well, and will have the right characters, location, sense of humor, and message for the job. Season 1 set the bar so high that I was actually worried heading into season 2. I was sure there'd be a dip, but I was gladly mistaken.
Welcome to the galaxy. We hope you will accept our humble gift of...
Season 2 immediately opens with a statement that they're going to do something different, a larger narrative, which forms around this new villain in the galaxy called Lord Dominator, who seems too powerful to be real. When others are around, Dominator appears to be a cold, humorless machine of pure threat and hate, but when she takes her battlesuit off, she's actually a sprightly young lady with a lot of evil on her mind. This season's arc revolves around the other characters slowly finding out more about her real personality, with Wanda just wanting to turn her good, Sylvia wanting to stop her, and HATEY wanting to marry her. And Dominator will do nothing to give in to their desires. We never get a good idea of where she came from, why she's so evil, and how she got such a destructive ship and set of robots. So there's always this enigmatic quality to her. She's not going to consider going to the good side just because some orange hippie guy wants to befriend her. She's not going to back down from her galactic conquest just because some subordinate can put up a good fight. And she hasn't got the time or heart for any romance with this Skeletor cosplayer. She's going to be the main antagonist now, whether you like it or not. And she's going to have fun with her growing array of powers. With such a massive threat, Wanda has a tough pill to swallow here, that some people are just bad and can't be changed. But he doesn't swallow it for as long as he can. He continues trying to see the good in Dominator, and even concocts a plan to get her and HATEY together so they can be more loving. It doesn't work. And there are a million signs pointing that out, and there is the possibility that through this plan they could team up and become completely unstoppable. But Wanda's doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, which I believe is a good thing to shovel onto your optimistic protagonist. Give them an ethical dilemma and see if they overcome it. But not every story is about Dominator's conquest. Some of them are about HATEY's waning spot on the villain leaderboard and searching for ways to reclaim his dignity. And others are about Sylvia trying to find people out there that can help in defeating Dominator, even though the amount of safe planets is steadily shrinking. That's one recurring plot you can giggle at, and another that gradually raises the stakes, even if some of their last resorts include Planet of the Butts, which I could imagine gave the Disney censors many a sleepless night. In these ways, and many others, Season 2 is a major step up from the first. It gives you incentive to keep watching after Season 1 pulled you in, and offers more for these characters to accomplish, even if they may never reach said accomplishments. Over Yonder had a series finale, but there were a few teasers and a cliffhanger that they were going to introduce a new simian villain if they got to a third season. Sadly, Disney told them they weren't getting one a bit too late, so they had to rush to give the second season finale more of a send-off vibe. Craig McCracken has since left Disney for Netflix and then Cartoon Network, but if he can go back there, there's nothing telling me he'll never return to Disney and complete Over Yonder someday. Cliffhangers can be annoying sometimes, but I'm too thrilled by Season 2 to be salty about it. They ended with a bang, and that's all I can ask for. I think I know a little too much about this world anyway, because one of the last episodes is this thing called The Sky Guy, where some nerd has a tiny planet in his store of collectible artifacts. It's a fine romp where Wanda ends up messing with the planet, but is this how planets are formed in this universe? Are they grown like plants with all the people on them? Wanda lore is strange, but I've gone off topic. Time to break some hearts, because here's a list of my favorite episodes. If yours aren't well represented on here, just remember what I said about any episode potentially being someone's favorite. Those speak to you, and these ones speak to me. Eye on the SKULLSHIP sees our lovable underdog Andy try to get an interview with HATEY for his vlog series. I'm sure if I ever tried to get a show creator on board for some questions, the struggle would be real. It's got cute dogs in it too, so it makes the list regardless. The gift serves as the second closest thing we'll ever get to an alien Christmas, as Wanda and Sylvia deliver gifts to as many of the people they've met along the way as they can. But it isn't just fan service, it leads into a darker and edgier part 2, the giftening. It's part of the same story, but the context is completely flipped, with the gifts now infecting the watchdogs with love, horrifying HATEY and peepers. If you didn't know this yet first for Halloween, you do now, and you're kinda happy about it. The HEEBIE has one knock against it, being a very cheap jump scare at the end. But otherwise, this was a super clever horror adventure that takes pride in focusing on what Wanda and Sylvia are most afraid of. While I don't find the fandoms that scary, you might just go back to building bed forts. The Matchmaker is a borderline meta episode where Wanda tries to send a love letter from hater to dominator, but fearing the end of the universe, Sylvia keeps trying to change the topic of the episode. There's a great montage at the end that gets various gimmicky episode ideas off their chest, and I should hate the ending, but I have to be honest, it made me laugh at myself. It was so well executed. My Fair HATEY is the big musical episode, all about Hater finally asking for Dominator's affection. It ends in icy misery, but not before the best song, where Lord Dominator sings about being the bad guy. Billie Eilish, eat your heart out. It was a pretty good idea to mix and match genres too, to give this musical showcase a very varied sound. The Catastrophe could be written off as another out-of-touch kids today with their phones vent, but there's a lot holding it up for me, namely the stunning Tokyo-esque location they're in, which I can get lost in having been to Tokyo earlier this year, and the clever return of a great villain. It used meme culture to tell a great story. How many cartoons from this time can you say that about? The time bomb is almost entirely set during a race, which I find pretty unique. A lot of cartoons do episodes about races, but aren't in them for 90% of the runtime. Cutting straight to the start line immediately perks you up and tells you this is going to be an action-packed ride, while giving Sylvia something to hone her temper on the track. Now, the waste of time gets a little wibbly-wobbly. Wanda and Sylvia get the wrong orb soap and start time traveling, and it keeps getting harder to land back in the present. We learn so much about them in an episode that ultimately ends up being a total farce. It'll hurt you inside that the title has a double meaning, but hopefully you got a heartwarming story out of it. The family reunion was one I was waiting for, a look at Sylvia's family. Specifically, we get to meet her meathead brothers and nagging mother and watch them all fight. Not the most fun episode when you say it like that, but the ending is a huge reward for getting through it, much like it usually is with dysfunctional families. We still never learnt exactly how much Wanda could bench in pounds, but that's what fanfiction.net is for. The box is one of the first times we see Wanda lose his mind, all about a box that could have anything inside it. It's another one of those plots that you definitely feel like you've seen before, but it's proven reliable over the years, and they put some neat twists on it. Wanda's manic dreams being the most interesting twist, keeping the action immersive for what could have been something more contemplative and sedentary. The cartoon is one humongous dig at the 80s shows many of these writers were forced to grow up with as kids. I've already made the Skeletor comparison, so it was amazing to get Hater to make his own He-Man ripoff. Amazing that this started off as the work of a villain too, given how, especially at the time, many of these toy-based cartoons were accused of being greedy commercials. But as much as they try to make the animation as bad as possible, they're trying their best to give off that effect, and Hater is right about one thing.
Animation is so hard! People who do this for a living deserve more credit and respect!
The Wandas is one more clone episode to make this video worthless. It's a doozy. A cave splits Wanda into dozens and dozens of facets of his personality, which is already a lot for Sylvia to deal with in one body. It's her duty to wrangle them up and put them back in the cave before it's too late, but there's one aspect to Wanda that she can't stand that keeps evading her. It's a part of him that's caused a lot of trouble in the series so far, but he wouldn't be Wanda without it. The Void is a classic. It's only 9 years old, but I already feel it earns that label. Wanda and Sylvia land in a void of nothingness, but Wanda somehow has some control over what can happen in it. It's a paradise for him, a place where all his wildest thoughts can become some kind of reality, but at the end of it all, it's still a pretty spooky place that they could have been stuck in forever. I think what would make this episode so appealing to other animators is that this is how all cartoons start, as a blank canvas for the creative mind to add something onto. So there's a distinct irony to the fact that it's got the potential to be the center of hell for Sylvia. The Lonely Planet is one of the most interesting ones they ever land on. Probably the most interesting. Janet the Planet is a living sphere that starts to fill with activity as Wanda befriends her, but she gradually turns into a clingy girlfriend. If you were to view this as a serious relationship, then it gets pretty unhealthy. But it's all to show that relationships aren't built on how much stuff you can give someone. It's about doing friendly and helpful things for the recipient. It's also incredible how they use the elements here. Janet eventually becomes the most earthly planet they ever visit, but she's filled with all the possible disasters, except politics, that make our planet such a nightmare. Going with the theme of nature, my favorite episode would be The Flower, the penultimate episode, all about Sylvia trying to protect one lone plant so Wanda doesn't feel hopeless. I don't know why I find it funny when something goes wrong and he starts welling up again, because I want him to retain his hope for the galaxy. There's a bit of a Wall-E thing going on here, the idea that a single plant is enough to make the universe a place where life and love can flourish. And now for 4 episodes that aren't bad per se, but have glaring flaws in my opinion. The search for Captain Tim takes us to the planet Hater's beloved pet was born on, and for as dramatic as Tim's debut was, this episode lifted a bit too much of the mystery surrounding him and scurried to find excuses to render the others useless. The Big Job is a heist episode starring a bunch of characters we've never met before and won't have time to get invested in. It's got a predictable conflict too. Wanda has to stay outside, but oh no, he doesn't stay outside. Not that a predictable plot is always bad, but this one makes it even less engaging. The hero is our romp through a fairy tale land, a cool, unique world weighed down significantly by the unlikable and one-dimensional Sir Brad. I get it's the point, but I don't remember this episode for the classic tropes it plays around with. I just remember it for how whiny the antagonist is. And my least favorite episode is The Loose Screw, featuring an old lady who makes this thing as boring and stuffy as a full vacuum cleaner bag. The message is nice, that elderly people can eventually show some strength, and this isn't the worst old people cartoon Craig has his name on, but still, something has to go at the bottom, and for me, this is one I'm not in any mood to revisit. But looking at the overall body of work, this has to be one of my new favorite cartoons of all time. A firm top 10 contender, and my favorite series by Craig McCracken and his team yet. Even the Powerpuff Girls in its prime had some episodes that make me say, no thank you. But Wander Over Yonder is filled with wall-to-wall greatness. If you like cartoony cartoons, this is your destination. If you want characters you can get attached to, this is your destination. If you're looking for a grab bag show where any episode will be something new and refreshing, this is your destination. But if you're looking for something with heart, pathos, and just a lot of warmth that can brighten up the worst day of your life, I can't recommend Wander Over Yonder enough. Take it from me, I have an anxiety disorder, and just thinking about this show, about Wanda and Sylvia, calms me down. They aren't real, but their quest to brighten up the universe is. So it doesn't matter how old you are, where you come from, or what you believe in. If you need cheering up, there's a wandering weirdo up there that'll get the job done.
So now...
I guess it's time for